Over the past 2 decades, infertility in Canada has surged, impacting 1 in 6 people. The cost of fertility treatments at times has been a barrier for those needing assistance to conceive. The good news is the BC government has a new publicly funded in vitro fertilization program to expand access to IVF treatment for eligible BC residents. The publicly funded IVF program will provide access to one-time funding up to $19,000 for eligible BC residents, supporting those who require IVF on their active path to parenthood. Here with us today, a fertility specialist who's lent their expertise to the BC government around this program, Dr. Niamh Talon. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
First off, what are your thoughts on the program and what has been the response from patients?
So I'm excited that there is a program. It's so wonderful to have it acknowledged as an important thing for the population of BC. Again, you mentioned like the fertility rate is declining and infertility is on the rise. And what that really means for us is that we need to help more people have their families. So they're reliant more on IVF. So this is going to be a very important program for many people.
Now, stats show that infertility is on the rise in Canada and in BC. How has this progressed over time?
So this really relates to the age of the first birth, meaning the age at which a woman decides to have her first child, and a number of factors that pay into that. Obviously, the more educated, employment strains, you're more likely to defer your childbearing to a later stage, but also housing prices is a deterrent. People like to try to start their families when they have everything else in place. That's certainly the trend today. So the average age for having the first birth in BC is about 32 years. What that means is, though, if you have your first child later, you're less likely to have a second or a third. So we've seen family sizes decrease with starting your family later in life. And that's really where something like fertility preservation or egg or embryo freezing for couples comes in as a way of safeguarding the opportunity, not necessarily for your first child, but maybe for your second and your third, when it becomes more challenging to get pregnant. Now, if you're trying to get pregnant today, if you are having difficulty because you've older eggs, they're not doing as well as they usually do, you lose more pregnancies, more treatment failure, it means you need to do more treatment. And so that's really why older women need more than one round of fertility treatment. We're still using their older eggs unless they've frozen younger eggs to use in that place.
BC has the lowest birth rate in the country. How does additional funding for IVF potentially change this?
I think it will change the opportunity for potentially younger people to not feel that financial pressure when maybe other things aren't in place. It's certainly going to allow people who never had an opportunity to consider IVF to be participating in having a family. And we've seen that in other provinces. When you look at the demographic of the people who really contribute to the program, they tend to be of a different socioeconomic class. You start to see people who maybe wouldn't have been able to do this at all participating.
This program is covering one cycle of IVF. Is this enough? And if not, what more can be done?
So, I mean, realistically, you would hope one cycle would be enough for someone in their younger years, like under 35 years of age, assuming that they look like a good prognosis patient. Patients who have lower egg reserves, and we see that in like 10% of the general population, they often will need more than one treatment cycle. Now, for patients over 35 and certainly over 38, it would be very common to need 2 or 3 IVF cycles, and over 40, maybe even more beyond that, because the efficiency of each treatment cycle goes down.
Those who are 42 years of age and older are not eligible for this IVF program. What are your thoughts on this cap?
So I think realistically, there are many clinics in Canada that cap at 43 years of age. Just the reality of pregnancy rates over 43 are low at about like 15% per treatment cycle. Again, this is a funded program by taxpayers' money, and we want to see the efficiency come back from a single IVF cycle. So to really get an additional birth in someone over 42, you would need multiple treatment cycles. And I think really that's where the rationale comes from. And we do allow patients, with good counseling, consider treatment on their own up to the age of 45 years. They're very much aware of the lower efficiency, but in this program, they would be funding those IVF cycles themselves.
Now, this program was initially supposed to launch in April. There's been a 2-3 month delay. What about people who turned 42 years old during those few months during that delay?
Yeah, I understand that Minister Osborne has said in that time that they would consider allowing them apply still and to be considered in that. My question would be, since the announcement in March of 2024, people have been waiting to hear, and there'd be many more people who may have aged out in that time. So I'm hopeful that they would be considered in terms of an application and be looked on kindly.
Now, what is your advice to people at home who are looking to begin their journey to parenthood?
Get information, get counseling, get your treatment done, meet a doctor, understand what your odds of success are. I think it's important to consider what your goal is. If you want a big family, you got to get started. Realistically, you need to be trying at 28 if you want to have 3 kids. If you want to have 2 kids with a high probability, you want to be trying at least from the age of 32 years of age, or else you're really looking at leaning on IVF to increase the probability of you having that first or second child.
And how can people get access to this program?
So you do need to be treatment ready. You need to have a referral to a fertility clinic that's participating. You need to have done the investigations, the testing, and you need to be ready to go. And part of that eligibility is between the age of 18 and in your 41st year.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Not at all.